Well, welcome everybody to the last session. Hopefully I'll get through this and you guys won't be sleeping. I know it's 2:30 right after lunch. Everybody has some nice food and snacks, so keep it as entertaining as possible. So this is, I changed the title up a little bit, but still same content, designing the contextual interface. And we'll be talking a lot about different devices, different ways to interact with content, and how that could be used across a wide variety of experiences. So this is Darth Vader riding a cat. I really have no purpose to have this in my slide except for Darth Vader riding a cat. So I just thought I would just slide it in here. I know a lot of people like to put cat slides in their presentations. And I'm not a big cat fan, but I saw this particular image, and there's nothing better than Darth Vader riding a cat, essentially. So, and obviously it rolls into, you can never guess what somebody's going to do with context. So obviously no one would have guessed Darth Vader riding a cat in this sense. So just to say who I am, I'm a lead UX designer and evangelist for a company called Universal Mind. We build a lot of custom applications, a lot of enterprise and consumer applications. I'm a lead UX designer and evangelist. And I won't be saying any hallelujahs or amen, so I won't be getting that far into the evangelical world. But I help clients understand user experience, and also do a lot of innovation on the innovation side as well. So we do a lot of cool, fun ways to interact with content across a lot of different platforms and devices. And that's my Twitter handle and my little blog that I have there, which the slide deck will be up there as well. I made a couple tweaks. There's one up there now, but be a couple tweaks to this one. So what is this this idea of contextual design? It's a little bit difficult to explain because there's a couple different terminologies for it, but essentially it's how any device connects to just about their surroundings both passively and actively. So it's getting all this sensor data that these devices or ourselves, how they interact with the world, right? So and how we react back with it and how the content changes and kind of understands that. So we're going to be talking a lot about what's happening now in kind of the real world scenario, and then I'll get into some more kind of where this stuff is going, more of a futuristic type of ways. And it was cool. I just was in a little demo talking about I think he spoke earlier today, doing a little Connect stuff. We'll get a little bit deeper into that. But first, kind of want to explain the ecosystem that we're living in now, and I'm sure this is probably appropriate because there's some sessions that talked about this, but we have this idea, this mobile-first methodology. And it's one of this kind of caveat into rethinking how people interpret their content, right? So they want to take the existing content that used to be built for these types of devices. We're connected to a computer. It should look and should form that way. Now we're trying to tell people to switch their thinking a little bit and think about it from a mobile-first standpoint. That goes all the way back to content strategy, right? So just because you might have a page that looks great on the desktop, you take all that, squish it down on a mobile phone, you'll be scrolling. And I think there was a article that came out that talked about the Obama site, and if you go to it on a BlackBerry, it actually times out because there's so much content that they squish down, you can't even get to it. So it's a whole mental thinking, and this is also a couple things that roll into that. And then we have responsive web design, right? So responsive web design has two different types of ways to execute some things between responsive layout and adaptive layout and all the myriad in between. So you take these two core concepts that we're working with now, and kind of this is the first wave of this contextual kind of design form and function, right? Well, what we're going to talk about today is what I think is the third part of that, and that's the contextual design of things. So if you apply these three principles and you combine them all together, you can start layering these experiences that'll be very contextual and very compelling for what you want to target. So we're going to be able to talk about, obviously when we think about contextual, you think the first thing that pops in your head is geolocation, right? So adapting to where they are in context of the content. But then we can also look at how many times they're connected to a particular Wi-Fi network. So if you come here often, I can know that this becomes a contextual habit for you to connect to this particular Wi-Fi name. Or if you're at home, I now know that when you're at home, you're at this connected network, you're at work, you're at that connected. So I can actually serve up content based on that scenario. As well as we'll get into a little bit kind of a sensitive topic, which we'll talk a little bit more into about the personalization of things on a personal level and privacy level, of actually looking into more like the calendar-aware design. So now we can actually peer into your phone, peer into your content, and kind of pull up information that you that are allowed to see. We'll get to the privacy concerns of this. But now you can actually layer all these things together. So maybe I'm in a particular store and they know that my son's birthday is coming up on Saturday. They can actually serve up contextual, discounts on particular products based on my buying habits. We'll get to an example of that, a really cool one in the future, or in the slide here in a little bit. So there's a great document that came out when I started putting this deck together that Google came out with, and it talks about this whole mobile multiple device kind of ecosystem. And I have a link here on all the links. You'll see a little source. You may not be able to see it up on the slides, but you'll be able to download the slides. You can see all these links. But what they talk about is how these devices are kind of anytime, anywhere. So what you want to do is people want to use their content in their own terms. So if I wake up in the morning, I may roll over, grab my phone. I may read some content there. I may go to my laptop. I may read the same content or continue reading that same content. When I get on the train, I may pull up on my iPad. So you want to make sure you understand where they're going through from a user journey map, basically, understanding where they're using your content, how they're using it, and when they're using it. And there's a lot of things that determine that. So one of them is a device. One of them is time. One of them is basically location, if they are moving or if they're not moving. So there's all these different types of arrays of sensors that you have, but allowing them to access the content on their own terms is the biggest thing and biggest challenge. In order to do that, there's a lot of user research involved in that. So a lot of times we like to tell our clients and other people to really understand their particular content and their context and their scenarios. That's the only way that this will actually work. This isn't just because it works for Google, just for it works for whomever, doesn't mean it's going to exactly work for you. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of scenario. So this is an excellent, it's a really deep presentation, and I just wanted to grab one slide from it because it was very focused on this particular topic here, but feel free to grab this. It's a great article. It gets deep into actually a lot of data analytics around multiple devices, how they're used, and I'll show a little bit of that, but it actually goes in a little bit deeper. So here's one example, and this is coming from Luke W., if you guys are familiar with him. He does a lot of great data analysis across a wide spectrum of mobile devices, and he's one of the ones that really started this whole mobile-first responsive web design kind of track. What he did a while back was he actually worked on getting a lot of data analytics around an app called Read It Later. It's now called Pocket, and what it did was it allowed you to read some content on the web and actually save it for later, so you could actually read it whenever you felt you wanted to read it or whenever the time was right. So as you can see, here's a graph here of all the iPhone users and the amount of data usage or the amount of times they're actually saving that content or activity, more or less. So you can see from 1 o'clock in the morning till 12 o'clock the next day. So it's rolling 24 hours. So you can kind of see the spikes and valleys. So back to that last slide I showed is anytime, anywhere. How do you start organizing the content? And this comes back from user research. You start laying this across user habits. You can actually put it to more common terms. So now we start seeing, okay, now this is how somebody reacts with a particular device on an iPhone in the morning, how they use it when they're commute, and then you can see the dip down when it goes actually at work. They're actually really doing work, let's say, and they're not reading this content. Then when they're commute home, it spikes back up again, right? And then now you can see in the evening, a little bit spikes up and down when they're trying to read the content. So now you can start formalizing contextual habits based on this particular very instance of what they're doing. Now this is for the app Pocket, but you can get an idea, like if you take this kind of idea of data analysts and apply it to your particular project or your product, you can start layering these types of contextual type of design. And it's about priority. So now you can start saying, we kind of know that they do the spike in the morning. We know what they do in the commute. We know that it dips down in the work scenario, and now it dips back up in the evening. So they can start rearranging their content. So let's now take a look at the exact same app and look at the data usage across the iPad. And this is probably pretty known that the iPad has become more of a entertainment type of evening usage type of device. So they took the same data, rolled it across the same timeline. I laid over the same type of contextual blockouts from a date standpoint. You can kind of see in the morning, people use their iPad, consume some content. In their commute, not so much. And then at work, obviously, it dips way down. And then back on their commute again home. And then in the evening, you'll see the big dramatic spike in the evening. So now they can really, based on the iPad, based on the content, based on the time, they can actually start prioritizing different types of interactions or experiences for the evening use for the iPad versus maybe that same experience won't be high priority for the iPhone. So you can see where the contextual priority comes into play between a device that's an iPhone and a device that's an iPad for this particular application. So this is one thing I wanted to make sure was very apparent. This rolls into the responsive web design topic as well. We do a lot of talking about progressively enhancing content. So I know a lot of right now, we work with a lot of large enterprises, and what they like to do is, hey, can't you just flip a switch, make it work on the phone? Well, like I said before, it goes back to really understanding the content and doing a lot of digital content strategy and figuring out where that needs to go. So what I mean by progressively enhance is taking the existing content as the devices get bigger or the experiences allow it to, you can progressively enhance the experience. And this is also not taking away any content that's originally there. It's called prioritizing it. So a lot of times when you see the little button at the bottom when you're on a phone, do you want to see the full site? They're basically conceding the fact that they don't know what they're doing because they gave that button there to allow the person to go to the full site. They don't totally understand what they're doing. So see someone clapping up there. I totally see that. It's been apparent across the whole design community that you put that button there, you really don't understand the full concept of understanding contextual design on the phone. Hence the Obama site now working on a BlackBerry. But this allows you to take prioritized content based on the content structure of a mobile device and roll it progressively. So you can enhance those experiences across the device of an iPad and even get to now even the interactive smart TVs and different types of interactions. So one recommendation, always think about progressively enhancing and not going the other way. It's a really difficult task though. And some large enterprises and companies and corporations have a little challenge with that, as you've seen. There's quite a few sites out there that haven't switched that lever yet and went to a more responsive web design because they have all the hurdles in the enterprise to do that. So now I'm going to go through some of the things that we don't really think about from a contextual design standpoint. And I always like talking about audio. The fact that a lot of applications don't really use audio, and I understand the context of that, but there's some really cool instances that you could use audio as context. Here I was showing Siri. Obviously, Siri is all revolved around the actual audio of a device, and it's built into the device. That's one thing that a lot more and more of these devices that come out, more and more of these experiences, it could be whatever device that comes out, audio is going to be a key factor. I would just look at the Xbox and the amount of interactive games now that they're building into actually audibly talking to the TV. One of them, the new NFL Madden, I think if anybody's played that, there's a lot of audio interactions to that standpoint, which makes perfect sense. I'm not saying add audio just for audio's sake, but from the standpoint of having audio and being able to listen to certain things, and this comes on the device level. Say, for example, one example I like to say is in the airport, you get in the airplane, they have these, obviously all the dinging noises that you hear prior to taking off, prior to landing, those are actually signals for the flight attendants to actually do certain things in certain orders. Well, essentially, if you think about it, if you had a device that actually knew those signals or dings, you could actually turn this device off instead of them saying, please turn off your device, and everyone does it, and they wait, and they get angry. Even though we all know maybe or maybe not, that isn't the total case. But you could actually have those dings that come across and actually force the phone to go to sleep or go into a mode that is off to be able to save. So that way you could remove that whole process. There's another one, though. I was at a session this last week at a actually it's not called Flash in the Can anymore, it's called FITC. Screens over in Toronto, and there was an individual that gave a great presentation around a bunch of apps that he created. And this one was very interesting, and I threw it in my slide on the way over here because the way he approached it was rather interesting. And you're probably wondering, Baby Carrots app, really odd. Well, this funny thing is the app's not available in the United States. It's only available outside of the United States. But what it is graphically designed very well. It's actually a game that your individual has this little hard hat on or this helmet, and you're riding in this like jet-powered grocery cart. And the way you actually get faster is actually taking baby carrots, the brand baby carrots, and actually biting it, and you're making the snap noise when you bite into a carrot into the device, and it actually knows, and then it'll actually make you go faster, give you a boost. So so it was really interesting. I was like, well, how's he doing that? Well, he went in, he's from MIT, so he has quite a few things that went way over my head, but they actually recorded a bunch of interns biting baby carrots, analyzing the digital spectrum of audio, and actually made an algorithm to determine when you're biting a baby carrot versus, let's say, a Dorito. So now they actually can really target that sound very closely and then actually have an interactive game around it. There's other games that do some other things too. He talked about another one where they actually recorded the the movie Despicable Me, where they have little green guys that kind of garble a bunch of weird terms. You kind of laugh at them, but you don't know what they're saying. They actually created an app, so you go into the movie and you start the app, and it actually dims your phone and turns the audio off, so it doesn't really bother anybody around you. They actually, in real time, they actually decipher what those little green guys are saying. And we're probably all wondering, like, well, how the hell is he doing that? Because Google can't even do that in real live translations. If I wanted to speak Spanish right now, I can't flip a switch and automatically Spanish is coming out of my mouth or coming out of the speakers. So what they did was they just did a little trick, and they actually little beeps and buttons that they push during the movie, and they actually listen to those very, very digital signatures and actually timestamp it to say, oh, they're going to talk at this point because you're in the movie. Obviously, when we get it on DVD, it may not work that well if you're pausing it because it'll show up in that case. But it was very interesting. They actually used a way to do that and make it feel like it's real-time interpreting these little green guys talking. So that's just a couple examples of audio. Yeah?
What's the name of that
I'm not sure the exact name of it. I'll have to get the, I can get his link. I didn't put it in this one, this slide deck, but I know it has to do with Despicable Me, and I believe it's only an Android app. So if you search through that, you could probably find it. And I think there's probably some links in Google. You could probably run through it and find it. I don't know the exact name, but I know it had to do with Despicable Me, and it was something about interpreting the little green guys. So the next one, like I talked earlier, was calendar. So, and I think you'll be seeing this more and more, starting to bring in the social aspect of design with this and be able to use it in good, which I'll get to in a second on the pros and cons of this. But iOS 6 allows you to pull in it has integrated Facebook integration in iOS 6. So what it does is, if you allow it, you can bring in your social Facebook calendar. And you're probably wondering, wow, I'm going to get all these weird calendar entries in my calendar, and you probably will. But if you are like me and I don't have a lot of those weird things, it actually helps out a little bit because I can get people's birthdays. That's what everybody uses Facebook for, is, hey, happy birthday to a person they haven't seen since high school, right? So you'll be able to see those. But actually the cool thing was what I talked about earlier, the scenario where I'm actually inside of a particular retail store. They're already tracking all of my digital purchases because they use my credit card. And if they could look into the calendar and say, oh, it's my son's or my wife's birthday, and they know I'm going to buy something based on my habits, they could actually contextually at the time serve up a discount or a coupon based on that particular product. So they're actually making it more convenient for me and them to encourage a sale. So there's some things here you could tap into, and there's a lot of other things that you can just run your ideas through from a contextual calendar sense. So there's almost this social aspect of sharing this content that is very personal, but allows you to twist it a little bit and do a little bit interesting things with it. Now this one is interesting, and a lot of times when you bring up location as a contextual kind of sensor input, you don't think of this. But this was interesting. This came right off Twitter. I follow a couple of people, and it was almost really bizarre that it came across this way. But if you read that tweet, wouldn't it be really nice if you're, say I'm here and I want to tell someone I'm on a certain street, why not just bring in location-aware text and show me that? Since autocorrect, as we all love autocorrect, right? If it would correctly show me the correct street I'm on if I don't know exactly how to spell it, just bring that up automatically. So there's some things that are starting to incorporate. Obviously, this is inside of the device, but as apps start adding more and more functionality, you can see how location in this sense could work really well. And obviously, there's all the great location examples that couple all this stuff. So this is about layering all these together, right? You could start figuring out, based on Wi-Fi network, location, audio, and different types of calendar events. You start layering these things. It's not one or the other. It could be, but if you start layering them all together, you'll start seeing how this can all happen. So this is a really interesting one, and it's going to be, I think, the next kind of huge push. And you'll see this, obviously, with Xbox and even the new Nintendo device that's coming out. The living room, right? So the living room is context. The living room is going to be something that a lot of devices, a lot of companies, there's even just came out today, there's announcement of some collaboration between NBC and a new startup that's going to be delivering simultaneous TV tablet usage along with television shows, kind of integrating those experiences, and that's the big thing right now. So here's a little bit of Nielsen information around the amount of time that individuals use their iPads with actually watching TV. So you can see that the usage is actually going up, and obviously the highest usage is email. But there's really no apps there's some apps starting to target this, but not a lot that are actually taking advantage of this. And as we all know, everybody here probably has some form of a DVR, so you're skipping all those commercials. So the big thing that advertisers want to be able to do is how can they take advantage of what they're calling as a second screen, right? The screen you have in your hand or the screen you have in front of you, whatever that might be, and how that can extend. And I'll get into a couple examples of how that kind of works. So there's this company called Precious out in Hamburg, Germany, that created a category of different types of multi-screen contact usages, right? So here's a list of just some ones that you might see. And you might have some in your head of what these would mean. Like a coherent is, if you guys are familiar with Evernote, the Evernote app basically has an iPhone, iPad, Android, all the different apps. You can sync all that content together, but it changes based on the device you have. The synchronization is more of a Kindle type of experience where I'm reading one page on my iPad, I pick up my iPhone, or I pick up my Kindle app. It'll sync across all the different apps where I left off reading. The screen share, this one's a little interesting. It's not really what it kind of looks like or what it says. Think about a big virtual kind of area, right? I may have a phone here, I may have an iPad here, and I may have my computer. How that experience visually goes across all of those particular devices, and I can interact with them. So almost almost like extending the display more or less, not really showing the exact same thing on all of them, but actually extending it. And then device shifting, so that's more of a Apple TV scenario. So if I can watch a movie on my iPad, or I send it over to my TV, or I send it back over to my iPad, I can kind of do a device shifting scenario across that particular content. Complementary is more of a kind of a Scrabble experience. If you guys have seen the Scrabble demo or iPad, iPhone, you can have your little letters on your iPhone, and then you can toss them over to the iPad that's actually on the device running the game. Universal Mind, we created an app called iBrainstorm. It has a similar type of companion where you actually are drawing and doing your information on the iPad. You use the phone as your sticky type information. You flick it over, it actually lands the sticky on the particular iPad. So that's more of a complementary. And then the simultaneous type of experience is more of a live event scenario. So, think of things that are happening in real time, and you can interact with it. So say a quiz or a particular, hey, guess what kind of play is coming next up on a particular sporting event. So you have this feedback in real time scenario. So these are just a couple examples that you can kind of see how you can start taking your content and context across all these different types of multiple devices and different ways to do it. And then obviously we all know that the big thing right now is device itself is context, right? What are they using, what are they doing, and how they're doing it? And it's going to be changing every day. There's new devices that are going to be coming out every day. So let's get into the con side of things. So one thing is, just because they're on a mobile device doesn't actually mean that they're using low internet connection or speeds, right? I don't know about you guys, but I use this thing on the couch all the time in my house because I'm too lazy to get up and go use my laptop or use my iPad that's sitting probably right in front of me. And I know a lot of other people probably do that as well. Or, like I am here right now, I actually have my phone connected to the Wi-Fi network. Just because I'm using it doesn't automatically mean that I'm using a slow internet connection. So that's one thing. Just try not to assume you need to serve up content just because they're on the device. There's a lot of checks you can do and layer on that type of investigation to see what they're doing with the download speeds. And I know I'm talking a lot about context, and this is the kind of twist of the whole thing, is context doesn't automatically mean intent, like the whole download speed. Just because they're on a particular mobile device or they're on a particular screen doesn't automatically mean you serve up content that way. Hence the whole button at the bottom that says, hey, you want to see full screen or not? No. Instead of removing content or taking content away or adding content that didn't exist, prioritizing the content. So you give them the option of, if they are on a mobile phone and they are traveling around, maybe there is a phone number link on there and there isn't on your desktop, obviously. So there's ways to do some things that context doesn't always mean exactly what you think it means from an intent standpoint. And this is a great one. I can't take credit for this. Forrester, I was at a Forrester conference, and this is what they said, and I love it. It's the whole privacy concerns side of things. Because once we get into looking into your calendar, once we get into looking at your usage habits, how you're buying things, it becomes a privacy concern for individuals. How do you get around that, right? So it's this whole mental twist of thinking, along with how I talked about the mobile first methodology. It's consumers and people like us have to start thinking a different way. So it's big mother instead of big brother. It's more of a nurturing aspect rather than, hey, I'm peering in and I'm going to steal the content and go sell it. Now, some people do that, but we want to try to remove that kind of worry and get it more into a nurturing aspect, so it's actually beneficial, like serving up particular rewards because someone did something a certain way. And I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Goldilocks principle. It came from the whole universe being in, there's 3 planets within the Goldilocks principle that can sustain life. Earth happens to be one of them. So this is the same experience with creating these contextual experiences. You have to get the just right experience, otherwise you're going to have people on either end get frustrated with it. But this is a very difficult thing to do, and that's why I said it's not a one-size-fits-all scenario. It's also a lot of user research and refinement. Just because you figure out something and you interpret it, you can try some things and you can reformat that and redo user testing across the board. But until you figure out what that correct experience is with all the user research, that's when you start creating that just right experiences. This is very difficult to do, hence why the contextual design, along with the other responsive web and all that stuff, is taking its time to get to certain spots because people don't want to make the wrong decisions now, but they're also hindering themselves because they're not even trying. So this is one thing that it's again, not a one-size-fits-all scenario. So I want to talk about a little bit of a story from wonderful friends at Target. I'm sure everybody knows who Target is, right? They probably purchase content there. So this is a non-digital kind of idea. And there's a link here to the bottom. You could read the story. So I see some of you nodding, so you probably heard the story before. But there was a father that had a family and had a daughter and a son and a wife. and he started receiving some coupons for baby cribs and baby clothes, and he's like, he got kind of frustrated because it was directed towards his daughter, which was still in high school. And he's like, why is Target sending this stuff? Are they trying to make her pregnant? Are they trying to get her to do this stuff? So he got pretty angry. So he went to the manager at Target, and he threw up a fit, and he complained horribly. But unfortunately, he went to the regional store. They don't really know they're doing this stuff. So the way Target works, you buy goods from Target, and you may use your credit card. Now, they track what you purchase to basically a consumer ID. So then they start calculating all this information, and they have probably the most tremendous algorithms based on purchasing habits that I've ever seen in my life. So what they do is they are now figuring out, based on purchasing habits, when a female is pregnant, and also determining what trimester they're in based on the content they're buying, or based on the goods that they're buying. So what happened was his daughter went and bought some goods, and it fit within the threshold of, hey, she's pregnant and she's in her first trimester, or whatever trimester, send her these coupons. So happened to be that the father the next day found out some activities were going on that he didn't really know, so his daughter was actually pregnant. So the whole article was talking about Target actually knowing this daughter was pregnant, or this guy's daughter was pregnant before he did. So happens to be, if you buy a lot of unscented lotion and cotton balls, you're going to be pregnant, and they'll know exactly what trimester you're in. So it's very interesting. So if you think of that from a very contextual standpoint, obviously Target's has humongous amounts of stores, and they got tons of data, so they've been filtering that in the algorithm. And I'm sure they have false positives, I'm sure they do, but they've done it very well, and it works. So if you think that scenario and think about how that could partake in whatever you guys are building or creating, think it on that level. So it's a great story. They have a great article there. It actually goes in really in depth on the amount of data that they have, which is kind of scary, but also really funny how they kind of figure out what people are buying versus what they're not. So how is it used today? So I got a couple examples. I'm sure you've seen some of these, but I just want to bring them up because sometimes people don't know about them. But Pay with Square. So it's an iOS, Android app that everyone kind of knows, but what it is, has merchants that use the merchant application Square, and you have consumers that have the app. And you basically log in, put your information in there, and you put a little avatar of your picture, and you can actually open tabs. So I could open up Square. I could find merchants that are using Square, open a tab here, actually say, for instance, Starbucks, and I could go over there, and I could just purchase whatever, ask them for, hey, I want a Cafe Mocha Grande, and I could just look at them, and they would look at a face that would show up on their merchant application because I'm in the geofence of the store, and I have the app so it knows I'm there, and it would automatically just charge my tab because it's already there. I don't pick up my phone, I don't scan nothing. I walk in, verify with my face, so it's very secure. It's creepy, really creepy, but it's extremely secure, and these are the things we're going to start seeing. The great thing is, like I said, with Starbucks, they just announced a couple months ago that they're going to put Square and on the merchant case in every single Starbucks around. So we know that people are going to start using and purchasing content this way. So they're going to become familiar with that. So it's a great step, like I said earlier, is getting them comfortable with doing something like this. So it's if you haven't tried it, I recommend trying it. Once it comes to all the Starbucks, you can start trying the experience. It's very cool. It is creepy, though, to walk in and just grab something. It's almost like going to the Apple Store, scanning it with the Pay to Go to app and walking out because it feels like you're stealing something. But it works, and it's a very, very cool application around the board. Another one is Evernote. I'm not sure if you guys use Evernote. I use it all the time. There's one little cool feature that I didn't know it even had. I have a lot of meetings every day, and I have to block out lunch. Otherwise, I would never be able to eat. So I do that every day, and then they still schedule meetings. But anyway, I go off to lunch. Every once in a while, I'll be having lunch, and I'll type down a note because I'll think of something. And I noticed one day that up in the title, it actually takes, and I accepted this a long time ago, and I totally forgot, but it actually takes whatever I have in my calendar event and appends it to the beginning note. So I don't even put in a title, and I don't think you can probably see it, but it says, note for my really cool calendar event. And I put my really cool calendar event in my calendar. So it's automatically contextually helping me figure out what the title of the event should be, or the title of the note based on the event that I'm actually in, and it's time-based. So it's a little piece of contextual stuff. So you see a lot of apps starting to do that. It's trying to help you, the whole big mother scenario. So it's really cool. You can try it. Once you allow it, it'll do its thing. And also, so Passbook. I don't know if you guys have seen the new iOS 6. There's a whole thing called Passbook inside of here, which allows you to be a little bit more readily available to do, like I said earlier, with coupons, with movie tickets, Starbucks cards, any type of loyalty card, concert tickets, baseball games, and airline tickets. So what it does is you either get an email or you get anything from a ticket standpoint. So you buy tickets online, they usually send you a digital ticket stub, and you basically can see that. But it's usually buried inside of an app or inside of an email. You click the link, and it'll actually create an HTML, which is really cool. Natively on the iPhone, it'll actually create a little card that'll pop up, and it'll have all the information. It'll actually look like this little United card with a little QR code, and that stores inside of a default app called Passbook on your desktop. So when you arrive at the airline or arrive at the airport, based on the day you have to fly within the time range that you need to go, what happens is you'll see the last little image on your home screen. It'll just pop up and say, hey, here's your ticket, and you slide it open, and your ticket's first thing there. So you're not digging through an app, you're not digging through anything. It's all time-based and location-based. So when I talked about the Target and the coupon and the buying habits, so now you actually could walk in the Target, it knows I'm in the store, it knows my purchase habits, it could actually send me in real time as I'm standing to buy my son another set of crazy Legos, to send me a coupon for 20% off that particular Lego set. Now, you need a little micro-location, but that's technically possible. So I know a lot of people are kind of not quite sure about Passbook yet because they don't understand it because it takes a little bit of time to get the usage out of it. But you couple that with the Starbucks and the Square kind of joint combination, you can have a real-time loyalty Starbucks card right inside of Passbook, and as you walk into the Passbook, you can see how much money may or may not be used. So I don't have the link up here, I don't think, but if you're on an iPhone, you can test it out. It's called passsource.com, 3 S's, and you can actually go and actually make custom cards for yourself. So you say create, and you can pick a wide range of different type of cards, and you can play with them. And there's I don't want to get into the whole skeuomorphic design debate, but it has a really skeuomorphic credit card shredder when you want to delete a particular card. So it's fun to see, but has no real purpose. So, but I digress on that whole conversation. Another thing with iOS is the do not disturb. So I thought this was really cool because this comes back to the contextual design on the phone itself. You can actually go into the phone and set it to be do not disturb, so no one actually will call you, no notifications will come through. You can do whatever you need to do without anything bothering you. But you might say, well, like myself, what if something, God forbid, happened to my son or my daughter, and my wife tried to call me? I wouldn't get that call, right? Well, they have contextually designed in here, if someone tries to call you 3 times within a certain time frame, they let it go through. Or you can set them as a VIP. So they thought about some things contextually. Even though this is great, you always have those concerns that how do you get past those. So it's a really cool feature. I've played with it a little bit. It's kind of difficult to get into the phone and find it. That's one thing I don't agree with their design on that particular implementation of it, but the idea is very cool. So I want to talk about once from a physical standpoint. So there's this fashion retailer called CNA in Europe, and they actually took their kind of Facebook information because they put all their clothes up there, and you can like them all, right? Like anything else, you can like stuff like crazy on Facebook. Gives a little popularity standpoint. Well, they took it another level, and they actually integrated into the actual coat racks here. You can see in the image the digital readout and LEDs that actually show what those likes are, numbers are, in real time. So you actually go to the physical store, and you actually can see what's popular or not. Now, is that a good thing or bad thing? I'm not sure. But it's starting to blend the world of contextually blending digital and physical into the real world of actually buying retail stuff. So it's kind of an interesting twist on that particular Facebook integration. It's kind of a neat thing. Obviously, I don't think anything in the U.S. is using that here, but it's kind of a neat thing. So there's one more to kind of roll into that kind of chart I showed you with all the different multiple device contexts. And I left this example out just for this reason. There's a thing called All Recipes. And you can go onto the website, go to All Recipes website, and actually look for recipes, right? Well, I'll do that, kind of figure out what you need to buy, create an account, create a shopping list, and then you pick up your phone, you go to the same URL, it knows that, hey, you have this account, here's a shopping list, and they actually design it in a way where it actually has all your lists, but you also can scan the particular products to see either more ideas around more recipes or figure out what you need or what you don't need type of scenario. So they changed the experience knowing that I started on the computer, found it, now I'm in the store, I want to do something different. And then now what they did, they have an iPad app that actually is the process of actually cooking it. So they've created a step process, taking all the ingredients. And the cool thing they did with this little kind of weird knuckle shot I have up here, they know that people are mixing around, doing their stuff, and they made the buttons big enough where you can tap it with a knuckle or tap it with your whatever, and it doesn't have a bunch of brownie mix all over your hands or whatever it might be. So they know, and they try to do some things within context to kind of walk through that. And that also shows the whole process of going through a multiple kind of device scenario across all these different types of ecosystems. I think they actually even make their own little Facebook or iPad stand to make it actually more look like a cookbook kind of stand scenario. So kind of a neat thing. There's actually a stirring thing too. I didn't show that, but I digress. So where's this thing going? So there's a Kickstarter project, and this design agency created an Android home screen application that actually is contextual based on all the things that basically talked about earlier, all the different sensors. And one of the things was they really do a lot of things around time. So right now we're looking at this particular application, they codename it Chameleon. Right now we're looking at in the morning. So I have my alarm snooze, I have the weather, I have some other kind of news events that's happening. But as the course of the day, the home screen actually changes. So now maybe I'm at work. So now I see my calendar, I see kind of all the maybe calendar implications, I see my mail, and I may see some content around books I have to be learning, different things like that. And then in the evening it turns into more of an entertainment experience. Like we all know that the tablets turn into that when they're at home. So based on all the different contextual inputs, they can start changing the actual home screen and application to suffice for more of the content that they want to serve up at that time. So the next one is basically the physical devices and how they work with a contextual kind of twist to them. So Intel is creating a remote that actually can sense the type of hand that touches it. So let's say I have a 5-year-old son. He grabs the remote. It's going to show all the kids' cartoons that are on the particular TV, or at least serve up those first in priority. And if I grab the remote on a Sunday afternoon, it's going to show all the sporting events that I want to watch, right? I grab the or somebody grabs the remote that's an adult past a certain time of night, it would show adult-related shows. So you can see where this could go in several different scenarios, right? But it's about grabbing the device, determining who that is, and actually serving up content. And that's based on a TV scenario. So we're seeing all the smart TVs, and now they're going to be tapping the phone. They're going to be able to grab a whole bunch of different great information. And imagine if they read your calendar and all that kind of great stuff. So I have a couple videos. They're not too long, but this one actually is really, really cool. Disney Research has a lot of great stuff that they play with, and this particular one is very interesting. It's actually called Touché, and it actually has to do with physical objects and them being used as sense. So I'll let the video roll through. There's a guy talking here, so let me make sure the audio's. And I don't think the video should be too long, but you'll be able to see.
Touché is a touch sensing approach based on swept frequency capacitive sensing. Conventional capacitive touch sensing operates at a single frequency, allowing for a single capacitive reading. This value goes up or down depending on if a finger is touching. This generally means capacitive touch sensing is binary. Either the user is touching or they are not. Touché, in contrast, sweeps over a range of frequencies, sampling the return voltage many times. This builds up a capacitive profile, which contains considerably more information. We can pass this to a recognition engine, enabling a wide variety of touch gestures. Our approach can be used to enhance both traditional touch interaction, for example on smartphones, and also make everyday objects and materials touch and gesture sensitive. To highlight the wide variety of applications Touché enables, we constructed 5 exemplary setups. In general, Touché requires only a single wire be connected to objects, as demonstrated here with a doorknob. 5 gestures are supported: no touch, 1-finger touch, 2-finger pinch, a circle gesture, and a grasp. Note how the capacitive profile changes in the background. Touché could also be implemented into a table, which could sense a user's posture or body configuration.
I'm sure they could probably determine if someone's sleeping in the back of a classroom too, so it's a lot of interesting twists. But this is all physical objects, so it begins to blend the world.
Touché also has great potential to enhance conventional touch sensing, which, as noted before, is traditionally binary. For demonstration, we created a pinching gesture set, which works in concert with regular 1-finger pointing. In addition to knowing when the user is touching and not touching, it can also sense when the user is pinching with 2, 3, or all 4 fingers. Touché does not require metallic objects. and can even add touch sensitivity to the human body. Our sensor board is wireless, communicating over Bluetooth to a computer or mobile device, enabling true mobility.
I don't know why they did that one, but it's
Finally, Touché enables
really
many unique opportunities for touch interaction. For example, we can add touch sensitivity to liquids easily with a single electrode located under the fish tank in this example setup.
So yeah, so they're doing some pretty cool stuff, and you can see where this is all going once you start playing with all the Xbox stuff and all the new Nintendo type of applications. But this is just where things I think are going. So just imagine the level of context you'll be able to have with actual physical objects. So this is the last one I wanted to show. This is actually a project that we've been playing with, and it's actually going to be talking about from a retail experience, from a telecom, let's say retail store. You can actually go in and throw content between devices for you, so you can take it back and learn more about it, or actually kind of do more of a product investigation while you're in the store with an employee.
I think the retail experience has changed. I think that more and more people are wanting a deeper experience when they come into a retail store. It's no longer about pick up, cash out, leave. So we have to provide some sort of interactive experience that's immersive. In this demo, we're showing the customer breaking the geofence line with their device. And so they're getting to a larger screen. They're actually seeing that they're there. They're seeing personalized content served up to them. They're selecting a sales associate that they're going to interact with. That sales associate is notified by his device. And he's seeing some information about the client. And so subsequently that they start to interact across this big screen. They're showing new products. They're swiping, throwing new products on the larger screen. They're watching video. They're seeing detailed specs. The actual customer then can take some of those things, swipe it, and throw it over to their device. They're creating the shopping cart experience. So at that point, the actual salesperson is now rotating that device into sort of this private mode, which is transactional. And so they're completing, whatever it's altering data plan, they're just verifying some of the contact information. The user's signing, transaction's done. 3 devices, really fluid, phenomenal experience.
So this is showing some of the ways to kind of share content across multiple screens instead of retail experience, and kind of the stuff we've been playing with. So that was it. I'm pretty close on time here, but I know it's last session. But thank you for having me, and let me ask questions. Feel free to shoot away. I have some stuff to give away too, so depending on how good your questions are, I'll let you pick something up here. Somebody's got to have a question. I got it. Those moleskins are really nice, by the way.
So the last one that you showed, is that being done somewhere right now?
It's in the stages of a kind of more of innovations kind of retail experience. So we're actually putting that together as a product to be able to use in different types of scenarios. So that's actually going to be the actual screen that we used there was a small monitor, but actually when it was actually built for a 16-foot wall. So you actually walk up to it. That's why the bottom third was more of the interaction standpoint, giving people a little more comfort zones to work with. And then as you threw content up, it would take over the full screen and more of a collaborative engagement type of scenario. So yeah, we've been playing with different types of implementations of that. So it's getting there for sure.
I've seen one such thing in a Las Vegas casino when
Right.
you walk in there and immediately dots around you change or something like that.
Exactly. Yep. It's more of the censoring of the user and what they're walking in. Yep. Yeah.
It's in my experience, it's kind of important to be able to turn off this context marketing
Yes.
where the birthday of this person is coming up,
Mm-hmm.
because after the funeral of that family member,
Right.
people get really, really, really upset when they get stuff in the mail about giving this person a birthday.
Exactly. And that's one of the things with the privacy and the settings scenario. And I had a very similar question at the last time. It's all about, and my recommendation would be always allow the user to control those settings, right? And that's what they do in iOS and as well as some of the Android stuff. But if you ever build an app that uses context, always make sure you allow them to customize that experience. Don't just assume that you said they always want this push notification. Allow them to control that. And hopefully even deeper down, if they do know if that individual did pass away, hopefully there's ways to kind of turn that off even to that extent. But yes, being able to control the settings, that's the biggest thing. And that's where the big mother, big brother thing, allowing them to do it is the best way to control that fear. Yeah.
And just kind of keying off that on the privacy issues thing too, it seems like there's a whole opportunity to, create represent what kind of information you're sharing with the world, right? So being able to, this kind of privacy mirror aspect of what does this environment know about me, or what am I projecting at any given moment?
And that's one of the things that Facebook's having a hard time with. They've already had to change that policy several times now, and you can pick and choose just my friends, or just a select few, or publicly everybody. And then
There
they're
was
going
some site that we could go to as well to sort of see what does someone see when they, just because clearly it wasn't built into the Facebook tools to be able to easily find out what does everyone see when they come to my Facebook and they're not my friend.
Exactly. And that's another caveat to all this contextuals. It's exactly the same thing with Target too. How much information do they really know about me? You know they know a lot, but what do they really know? Being able to see into that would, I think, allow people to say, oh, you know what? Okay, I understand why they're collecting it, and now I understand why they're using it. That would actually probably help people to start to realize, hey, they're not just mining me for mining's sake. They're actually trying to facilitate, helping me. But yeah, I agree that there's going to have to be a twist of this, letting people peer into that information easily, not allowing to do that. There is another creepy Facebook thing too that you actually can run through, and it basically just grabs all your pictures and actually creates a story, and it's really bizarre. But I can't remember the URL. It's a really interesting concept for sure. Yeah.
You were talking about the view the full site at the bottom of the web page. What is current best practice for? It's kind of standard that people will do something the hard way if they know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So with all this contextual stuff, a lot of people don't know how it works. Where do you introduce that? Is it more in just native apps because maybe those people are more tech savvy?
Yeah, I think it goes back to we're having the same conversations with a lot of different clients, and it goes all the way back to almost understanding where they want to start from, almost a digital strategy standpoint, where they're going to go. And yeah, having the button at the bottom and forcing someone to go into a full site mode, it's actually rethinking that content. So it actually goes up a few levels more than a technical implementation. It's actually the design and content and information architecture. But introducing little steps, like some of the things we're working on right now with our actual own Universal Mind, our own site, is actually introducing like, hey, when you're on the mobile phone, it's responsive and it's going to start showing, hey, locations and calling us maybe at a higher priority. It wouldn't have to be the only thing that's on the site, but it'll actually be a higher priority. And all the content is there. It's just the priority is changed and allows you to go deeper. So a lot of times we find that doing that will help them start introducing some things. It's like the Evernote does those little contextual things. I'm sure they could do more, but they do little pieces of that people start recognizing. But it is an evolution. It's not a jump drastic. It's a baby step scenario that needs to happen. That's kind of why they did Passbook and iOS instead of just flipping on NFC. So because people would get really freaked out if they could do all that stuff and no one would really use it. So it's like baby steps of like introducing these commonalities and doing some things a different way. But yeah, little baby steps is probably one of the best approaches to doing some things.
Yeah, you just said NFC, and that was the problem. How does something like NFC fit into some of these strategies, or is that just another fad, or is that?
That's just another sensor that's going to be listening, right? So, in my own personal opinion, like I said, why they didn't just put NFC in the new iPhone 5 was because of the Apple likes to allow people to grow with particular devices. That's why they didn't, obviously, when the first iPhone came out, only Apple built the apps. They didn't even allow people outside of it to build apps because they wanted people to be comfortable with it. So I think they did that just so they could learn, have people kind of start understanding, like, hey, I can walk in and it knows and it serves up content. I can still scan something physically. That's why I think it's really interesting that Square partnered with Starbucks and how well that is adopted, because walking into a store, having validation with just your face and you don't do anything, somebody going in their purse or going in their wallet to pay for something is so ingrained in us, it's really difficult not to do that. So I think that's the progression of learning that needs to happen with that. But NFC would happen like that if they were to implement it. And I think people may not be comfortable with that, may not use it, therefore it wouldn't be used. So it would be an investment they would make, but they wouldn't get all of it out of it, kind of thing. Yeah, you had a question?
It was more a comment.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, the face recognition software,
Yep.
that even the best ones, sometimes they'll show a knee as a person,
Exactly.
and
The full false positive scenario.
yeah, and if you knew what the fallback was for that.
Once you start getting facial recognition, you don't have a whole lot of fallback. It's,
Right,
it's
well,
making the
that's what
quick.
I'm saying,
It's one of those scenarios where people have to be comfortable with it. And the one thing with Square is it actually a physical picture, and a human is looking at it, so they can say, "Oh, I know that's you," and it's not someone else. But having a computer read that gets to be very difficult. But I think as the intelligence of those applications grow. That'll help. But facial recognition is one where I don't think it's ready for prime time yet. I know I actually have a lot of friends who are actually building applications around the whole ecosystem of facial recognition. I know Apple has some of it in its to detect faces, but not all the way to detect who it is. I know they do a little bit in iPhoto, but still you have to basically make it learn based on your input. So I think that's going to be how we're going to get there, is actually kind of teaching the actual facial recognition with the actual human being, validating that yes, that is the person, and then it'll actually learn and grow it and make sure it is that person. So that's a difficult one. Yeah, that's the false positive scenario. And user testing is primarily the biggest one because, you don't want to, hey, look, come up with this demo, and it shows a guy instead of a girl, and that's going to deter them from whatever because that's definitely not what you want to happen. So anyone have a question over here, though? I saw someone raise their hand. No? Any more at all? No? All right. Thank you very much for Okay, who wants these?
What are they?
These are moleskins, so they're basically you put all your great ideas in these things. These things are great.
Do they have the new Evernote sensor thing?
No, they don't, but we are looking at getting some new Evernote ones so you can actually scan some information in. So you actually asked the first question. We broke the ice, so I gotta give you one of them.
Thank you.
Yep.